Hello, welcome to the Desert Blockchain monthly session on Wednesday, January the 26th, 2022. It's 7 p.m. Arizona time, and my name is Jay Carpenter. I'll stop screen sharing. And I am the founder of Desert Blockchain. And if you're not familiar with these sessions, we have these on usually the fourth Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. and we cover a variety of topics, and ranging from policy to decentralized voting, basically applications more so than cryptocurrencies. We're going to be doing a lot on non-fungible tokens. In fact, next session will be on February the 23rd, and we'll have Jason Horton of Nori, who has created some non-fungible tokens that are very interesting, innovative, and we'll be talking about that. And I just announced that session. So tonight we're going to be talking about three events that, excuse me, I recommend people take a look at and consider attending or at least following. And I'll go into detail as to why I think these events are really valuable for you and why they're different than other types of events that you'll encounter. But we're going to be talking about the governance of emerging technology and science. It's called GETS. That's hosted at ASU Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law. We'll be talking about the DWeb Camp, and which is also associated with the decentralized web summits, and those are awesome events as well. But we'll also be talking about what used to be called the Stanford Blockchain Conference, but now has changed to the Science of Blockchain Conference. So it's kind of going to be in ascending order of technical detail on this. So I'm delighted that we have a great group with us today, including Professor Gary Marchant of ASU Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, who will be talking a little bit about the GETS conference. So anyway, are there any questions, any comments before I get started here? I'm going to go back to screen share and we'll kind of walk through this, and then we'll open it up for comments, questions, discussion, and so forth. So hopefully you can see my screen, but basically in addition to sort of ascending levels of technical expertise, this is also in the order of which these conferences are likely to happen this year. I say likely because DWeb Camp is, although it's being planned, it doesn't have a date set yet, and the Science of Blockchain Conference at Stanford University has already been pushed back once. So let's keep our fingers crossed on these, but I'm going to share a little bit about my past experience on these three conferences, and then, at least you'll have something to look forward to, whether it's virtually or when it happens again in person and so forth. So let's, why are we talking about this? Why is this an important matter? In the decentralized construct and decentralized Web 3.0 space, as it's being called now, attending these events, in my view, is critical to getting into the various communities of the decentralized web ecosystem. My experience is that these communities are very tight-knit, and it's often hard to sort of get acquainted with the cultures and the subcultures and so forth. And attending these events, I've found to be extremely valuable, certainly for the content, but even more importantly for the networking that occurs. And I'll talk about each event and what the different cultures are in my view, but there is so much to get your arms around in this space. It's absolutely, in my view, it's absolutely impossible for any one person to have a grasp of all the different dimensions of what's happening with non-fungible tokens, with central bank digital currencies, all of this, not to mention the requirements, the technical requirements to really be able to build something in this realm is huge. Not only do you have to be intermediate to advanced web developer, but then you have to take those skills and learn all the different technical areas of cryptography and game theory and all this stuff. It's just, it's very daunting in my view. So attending these events I've found to be extremely valuable for the networking, for the education, but just to identify people that have sort of sub expertise in the different areas that we're dealing with and experimenting with has been extremely valuable to me. So having said that, why did I pick GETS, DWeb, and the Science of Blockchain conference? These three events, in my view, attract the best people in the respective areas. And again, I'll talk a little bit about the nuance of each event, but I've been completely amazed at the experts and the dedication, the commitment that of the people that are attracted to these three events has been extraordinary. So that's why I'm picking these three events. I consider them to be basically the top of the priority list. I know there are other events and conferences out there. Some of them, in my view, are designed to basically be promoting certain projects or more like a trade show to sell something. And there's nothing wrong with that. That certainly has its place. But GETS, DWeb, and the Science of Blockchain conference seem to be as Swiss neutral as I can find out there in terms of what they're talking about, what projects they're highlighting, and the people that they attract. So that's kind of a brief introduction of each of these items. So let's go ahead and get into the first event that's on the calendar, and the one that's deals with policy and governance primarily, which is the governance of emerging technology and science here at our very own Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law at Arizona State University. And that will be May 19th and 20th of 2022. Just to kind of give a thumbnail sketch of this, this involves about 200 people roughly that come into, pre-COVID, come into Arizona from all over the world. And they are mostly either academics, excuse me, in the law profession, some judges, extremely knowledgeable on the law and governance and so forth, and also some expertise in various topics like cybersecurity and other areas, dispute resolution, standard setting. All of those types of folks attend the GETS conference. And the reason that I am particularly attracted to GETS and ASU's Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law is because I think that policy and governance are the areas that are ripe for innovation in order to really make the decentralized blockchains and decentralized constructs that we're exploring really achieve what their promise has been, and that's gotten so many people excited. So I'm let me flash through these slides, and then I'll open it up to Professor Marchant as well, and have him join in. But here's an example of the topics, and you can see it's a very broad set of topics, and it includes blockchain, but there are experts in each one of these areas, especially in the legal realm. And beyond this, there's also experts in privacy, in process, legal process, and so forth. And it's just a very, very rich conversation that really highlights the fusing of technology, policy, legal constructs, governance, and so forth. Let me go to the next slide. Here's an example of, just like the first few hours of the first day from, I think this was last year, but you can see that you've got people from all over the world that are participating, scholars from various, esteemed academic institutions, and it's just really a rich convergence of the experts in this field. So here is the photo section, and you'll see there on the very left is Professor Marchant, and a lot of the conference takes place in, I think it's called the Great Hall there at the ASU Law School, and they have some on the far right. That fellow's named Walter Johnson. I think he's graduated from ASU Law. He talks about quantum computing and just amazing topics that highlight his talents and realm of academic study. So, Gary, let me turn it over to you. I'm going to take it off screen share for the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is Gets open for registration yet?
Not open for registration. The call for abstracts is open until next Monday, the 31st, and then we'll open up for registration after that. Really looking forward to the conference this year because it is a really interactive conference with a lot of networking and so on. We just didn't feel comfortable doing it online. It's just too boring, really. And so we haven't done it the last 2 years, but we've done it the 8 years before that, and looking forward to the 9th annual one this May, as you said. I really appreciate you bringing it up here. The idea of the conference is—
Gary, if I could
interrupt
you for just a moment. I forgot to turn on the recording.
Okay.
So sorry about that. Let me turn the recording on. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry about that.
So the conference this year will be the 9th annual one with the 2-year moratorium for COVID in between. And as you say, it's people from all over the world, from all kinds of different technologies, all kinds of disciplines, from academia, industry, government, and so on. And it's sort of the idea behind the conference is we have all these new technologies coming into our society. And the traditional way we used to regulate technology of an agency issuing rules that take 10 years to promulgate and then stay in place for 40 years and get enforced just isn't going to work for these fast moving technologies. So the idea is we really need to be innovative in how we govern these technologies, with a lot of initiatives coming from the players in the field and other types of third parties and so on getting involved, not just government. And so the idea is we can really learn across a lot of technologies, because all these different technologies are sort of encountering a lot of the same challenges of finding a way to be responsible, to be ethical, but not to have heavy-handed regulation by some agency in Washington telling them what to do. And so that's sort of the spirit of the conference. And like in 2019, the last one we did live, we had over 100 speakers on, I think, 61 different technologies. So there's just a huge richness of different technologies and people who are working on the governance of that technology, talking about what they're trying to do and what succeeded and what hasn't for other people to learn. We've always had a big sections on blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and I know we will this year too. We've been getting a lot of abstracts in and see a lot on those. Going beyond cryptocurrencies, obviously, and a lot of things on sort of governance using blockchain and sort of the future of blockchain in our economy and so on. So really looking forward to it. It should be a great lineup again this year. It costs, I think we try to keep the cost pretty minimal to about $130 to register. But if you present a paper, and you don't have to present a paper, present a talk, you just need to submit an abstract of 500 words or less and get selected. It's free. So, we hope a lot of people will take advantage of that. We can sort of expand beyond 100 speakers if we need to. Again, we're well over 100 abstracts already this year already, but certainly welcome more. It's just a 500-word abstract. You got to submit by next Monday, the 31st. And we'd love to see some more in the blockchain space. And then if you get selected, we will, give you a free registration so you can come to the conference for free. If you know any students, see the thing Jay was showing on the right with the poster boards is on the night of the 19th, we'll have a student poster competition where we give $500 and a $250 prize. It's the only part of the conference where we have a free open bar. And so it's always very well attended. We provide meals for all the rest of the conference for all the registrants, including all the speakers. But that's the only one we have alcohol we provide for. So it's a great fun event and a lot of, boisterous talk, and the students love it because they get to talk with all these experts from around the world who are interested in their poster because they have nothing better to do than walk around and look at them. So it's a fun evening as well, and a chance to really support a lot of young students, to talk to them about their project and give them ideas, and they'll ask you career advice, even things like that. It's really sort of kind of cool. So I encourage people to either sign up to give a talk and get that abstract in by next Monday, the 31st, or come to the conference on the 19th or 20th of May. Fingers crossed that COVID will be significantly reduced by then. I think it will. I think it's peaking right now. And so we're hoping we can have a safe and in-person event on May 19th and 20th.
Yeah, it's a remarkable gathering of people for sure. And, as Professor Marchant said, and Professor Marchant teaches the blockchain course at ASU Law, which is very well attended. But one of the things, Gary, that I really, really love about, what you're leading and where the college is going is you really focus on soft law, ways to navigate these very complex issues. And Professor Marchand has written some papers on, this topic, the sort of the quandary and dilemma of how do you fit all this together. And, I think that's really a valuable path for the future. If there are ways that we can accomplish what the codified law has accomplished in the past, but make it faster and cheaper and more dynamic and workable as much as possible all the way around, that's a huge benefit. So that's just another dimension of the conference and the whole initiatives at the law school that I really admire.
Right. It's a real major focus is to look at sort of innovative ways to govern, to try to allow technologies to proceed expeditiously, safely, responsibly, but without being heavy-handed regulation that's going to shut them down, essentially.
Yeah, and that's particularly critical in the cryptocurrency and blockchain space, where there's all sorts of gray areas, and the legacy structures, regulatory structures, and so forth are in a head-on collision with the decentralized realms that are emerging and moving rapidly. So this is really an important area. And you might not think that law and governance and whatever impacts the zeros and ones in your code, but it definitely does, because there's a lot of things that are directly impacted by. It doesn't even have to be actual case law or anything else. It's just the threat of, can you pour all this time and money into creating the platform, and then all of a sudden the platform is attacked by class action attorneys or regulators or, who knows what. And not to mention the mix of jurisdictions, fitting all that stuff in.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jay. Just the threat of that alone deters innovation, deters investment. So, we need to try and have clear pathways forward for these technologies that can go forward in a responsible way, but not be burdened with too much legal, red tape.
And I would like to add that some of our Arizona policymakers are active with ASU Law School in this decentralized realm. Well, in this, area of innovation, they are trying to craft, legislation that accommodates this, new wave of innovation and so forth. That's trying to bridge the gap between the legacy and the contemporary. And we also have had participation in the GETS conference by some of the innovators that are trying to craft workable sandboxes so that you can kind of, cordon off the area, let the innovation happen, and then if it reaches a certain level of life, then you can try to, fit it into the square peg of, the legacy legislation and regulations and so forth. So all of those things are, I consider, the GETS conference and the ASU Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law to be a real gem for Arizona and the nation and the world. And if you look through some of the speakers and the sessions from the last one, you'll see that it is truly a global conference. So any questions from anybody? I don't see any questions on the YouTube live stream. If you're watching this on the YouTube live stream, feel free to post your questions on the chat on the right. So, great. All right, well, we can come back to this and let me move on to the next one, which is DWeb Camp. So, all right. So this is kind of the beautiful picture of, there was one and only one DWeb Camp so far, which happened in July of 2019. And it was about an hour south of San Francisco, someplace a little bit south, I think, of Half Moon Bay, right on the Pacific Ocean. It's on a farm that raised mushrooms for Campbell's soup. And it's just a beautiful location. I don't know if the next DWeb Camp, which is in the planning phases, will be at this location or not. But it's an amazing opportunity to sit down at a picnic table with the people that are creating what's next for the web. And you can also sit down at the same table and have the founders and innovators of the web that we currently use. And I'll explain that a little further in an upcoming slide. So here's a link to some of the sessions and the schedule and so forth from the first one, but you can kind of scan through this and you see it's kind of a broad range of policy, technology, and just a really rich mix of people that are looking at all sorts of different dimensions of where things are headed. How can we make this work? How can we make it work for a whole variety of concerns? So here's just a little snippet of some of the folks. And, in this, you'll see in the top row, second circle in, is Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who was the originator of HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, that basically allowed us to be sharing web pages and documents and all kinds of things on the web. When he invented this when he was a physicist at CERN. And he just recently packaged up his original code for HTTP protocol and sold it via Sotheby's for, I think, 5.6 million using a non-fungible token. So when I arrived at DWeb Camp, like the first day, I'm walking along and I encountered Tim Berners-Lee, and he was struggling with his wristband to put it on, like you get at a fair event or whatever. So I actually helped him put on his wristband, which was kind of my story to tell, my kids and so forth. But unfortunately, I presented 3 sessions, and I think 1 and maybe 2 of those sessions were directly opposite Tim Berners-Lee, where he was talking about his decentralized identity project called Solid. So we had a little competition there, but I actually had some folks attend, and it all went well. But basically, if you scroll through the list, and this is only a small portion, you'll see some really incredible, talented people. Another person who's in the 3rd row down on the very far left, Abik, is actually with ASU, and he is quite a talented engineer in the realm of robotics and Internet of Things and so forth. But he attended and basically made a difference and a big contribution to the entire community and ecosystem. So anyway, that's a little feel for the type of people that attend this. And this is actually a photo of the most of the group, and you've got people in there like Brewster Kahle, who's with the Internet Archive, who's in the Internet Hall of Fame. Over to the left, he's wearing kind of a yellow shirt. I was sitting close. I don't see her next to me, but Mitchell Baker, who runs the Mozilla Foundation, was there. I had a nice chat with her at around a campfire there. I'm kind of right in the middle of just above the head of the fellow who's got his arms stretched out with the white hair. But there's within this picture, and I'm not going to bore you with, picking out more folks, but I can assure you that the folks in this picture frame are doing a world of the heavy lifting for the innovation around Web 3.0. And they're incredibly committed and dedicated to seeing the desire, the spirit of giving the power to the peers, and all of us individuals being the peers in the network, enhancing the power that we will have in the future. So here's yet another set of pictures. There was this kind of circle with a big fire in the middle that you see with the awnings above it. That was really cool. We would have these gatherings usually at sunset or in the evenings. And then on the right, you can see a gathering of folks that was inside the buildings there, and they're having a big chat about something. You can see Brewster Kahle there in the foreground, the top of his head with the yellow shirt. He's making some sort of point. But it's a really rich group of people. I sat down for an hour and a half on Saturday afternoon and had an in-depth conversation with Juan Benet, who's the founder of Protocol Labs and the Internet, or the Interplanetary File System, and and a couple of his associates. Having that opportunity is just amazing. So hopefully they will be the Internet Archive, which is basically pretty much organizing the next DWeb Camp, will be announcing some dates, locations, all of that sort of thing, so that we can start to make some plans and participate in the next DWeb Camp. There were about 450 participants in this one. The first one, people didn't really know what it was. Now that people know what it is, I would expect that there'll be much greater demand for this particular event. So I will stop it there. I think that's my last slide on this. I'll take it off of screen share. Any questions or comments about DWeb Camp? I don't know. You can take a look, Charlie, on the participants on the, I think it's Get DWeb Camp. There's a link there, and determine who's there. One of the people that was with us, Chad, who's a regular participant on this, he shared a story where he was at dinner or whatever and bumped into a fellow next in line, and he goes, I'm Chad from Phoenix, and this fellow said, I'm so and so, and Chad said, oh, who are you with? He goes, I'm with Anaconda. And Chad said, oh yeah, what do you do there? He goes, well, I started in Anaconda. So so those are the type of conversations that you have at this. It's pretty amazing. So I will get back on screen share, and then we will talk about see, whoops, I know what happened. I clicked on the picture instead of trying to advance the, oops, it's doing the same thing. Sorry about that. Okay, now the Science of Blockchain Conference. This is held on the campus of Stanford University in their Alumni Center. And I think this is about the 4th year for this. And a group of us from Phoenix have attended this, I think 3 of the 4 years, including the last one, which was in 2020. And again, another personal story. One of the first persons I encountered was Vitalik Buterin. And I wasn't, it was new to the rituals of the pandemic. He put his fist out to bump my fist, and I tried to shake his hand or shake his fist like it was a hand. And it turns out, as if you watch his talks, you can tell that he wasn't feeling very well. So anyway, I might have caught something from Mr. Buterin, and that's kind of another sort of infamous claim to fame on my part. But this is the pinnacle of the technical and academic conference. In my view, you have the cutting edge of blockchain, cryptography, consensus, all of it in this conference. So you probably can't see this, but if you take a look at the topics and the presenters, it's an amazing collection of the top of the food chain in terms of talent. Within this, we had one of the top people with the Libra project, what was called Libra at the time, for Facebook. And, he talked about what they were dealing with, and it's since been rebranded as Diem. But we had David Schwartz, who's the chief technical developer for Ripple, talking, and Vitalik Buterin, just an amazing group of people. In this conference, I was first introduced to verifiable delay functions, and you had some of the top academics in the world that are inventing how those can be applied and so forth were there. But zero knowledge proofs, verifiable delay functions, consensus algorithms, innovation in consensus. It's just an amazing gathering of folks and set of topics where you have to really pay attention to follow along. So anyway, this has been, and by the way, I don't know how long it was open. I think it opened in December, but it sold out immediately. And then they decided they had to push it back to late August as well as possibly early September. So I don't know when they will reopen registration, but it's definitely a register as soon as you get the opportunity type of event. So here they have like 3 videos that are on the site. The site is very sparse. It doesn't have a lot of frills or fluff to it, but these videos, like this one's almost 8 hours, and they just have some, video cameras going in the back, and they're just filming everything. So you can take a look and get a feel for, the topics and so forth from 2020 on this. But let's see. Then this on the left, you can see that's the main room where the conference happens. They have some side rooms and so forth where you can go and basically do work while you're still watching a live stream of the conference. But that's about the size. I think they had like 1,000 people in 2020. And then the other area that's very active is the outside sort of patio area. So if you look at this picture where the building begins there, that's just outside the doors of this large auditorium. But if you look at the fellow that's got a bag over his shoulder that's wearing a blazer, I think he is from the San Francisco Federal Reserve, if it's the fellow I'm thinking of. There were 3 people from the Federal Reserve, one from San Francisco, one from Boston, and one from Washington, D.C. So in one of these breakout sort of workrooms, I stumble in and let's see. I think that's it. I'm going to take it off screen share. So I stumble into this room and people have their laptops out and they're watching the conference and so forth. And I overheard somebody talking about the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, which I'm very familiar with because I come from a telecom background. So it's kind of a cluster of people around this table. So I crashed the party and muscled my way in. Turns out they were talking to the Stanford faculty about how to design the Federal Reserve central bank digital currency. And so I'm sitting there listening to this conversation, which is amazing. And the fellow to my left looked a little bit familiar. And then he introduced himself. His name was David Mazeras, who's a professor at Stanford, who's the chief architect of Ripple. No, not Ripple, but Stellar, which we do a lot of. And he's also the professor who taught Juan Benet of Protocol Labs. David Mazeras was Juan's professor. And David Mazeras, if you take a look, is noted because he devised the Kademlia distributed hash table, which is at the core of the interplanetary file system and so forth. So I might be boring you with a bunch of terms and whatever. Suffice it to say, and you can probably tell from my excitement, that it was like this amazing kind of eureka moment for me. And that's the type of thing that happens at the Science of Blockchain conference. And it used to be called BPACE, which stood for Blockchain Protocol Applied Cyber Engineering or something. So it was BPACE, and it was the Stanford Blockchain Conference, and now it's the Science of Blockchain. But a project, I'll bore you just a little bit more with a kind of an interesting detail, but just to kind of show you the caliber of this. Bram Cohen, who was the originator of BitTorrent, which at one time was accounting for like 60% of the internet traffic, he has created a new project that's called Chia, and it uses a proof of space algorithm for consensus, much like Filecoin. But Bram Cohen, I was watching one of his videos, and he refers to this same conference as BPACE. So, it's the type of conference that would attract somebody who was the founder of BitTorrent, which is a huge deal, has created another project called Chia, which, arguably could be extremely significant in a whole way to come to blockchain consensus without either proof of work or staking, which is, I think, really, really important. So anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell, the three conferences: the GETS conference, the DWeb Camp, and then the Science of Blockchain conference at Stanford University, which is scheduled, but not, to my knowledge, actually come to think of it, since Professor Marchand said that the registration's not open for GETS, registration's not open for any of these yet. So you're getting sort of a early preview if you're not familiar with these conferences, so that you can be on the lookout for them and sign up basically as soon as possible. And if you have an idea for a talk for the GETS conference, you've still got some time to submit an abstract and be in consideration for actually participating in the GETS conference. So that's a lot of me yakking. Any questions or comments? Anything like that? There's another dimension to all of this that I would like to articulate, because I'm very committed to seeing the decentralized Web 3.0 blockchain community here in Arizona come together and grow, and basically, start to feed upon the talent that I know is here. It's just, how do we get it together? And so I continue to ask people that are in Arizona to go to some of these conferences that are in other states. The GETS conference is a great gem for bringing people in the realm of policy and governance. I would love to see a conference created here in Phoenix or Arizona or someplace that starts to bring in more of the technical talent from around the world. There are conferences. Wyoming has put together a conference, not so much technical, but it's become very popular. I think they call it the Blockchain Stampede. Denver has ETH Denver, I think it is, which seems to be gaining quite a bit of momentum. Texas had just launched in the fall their blockchain conference, and that attracted a lot of very prominent people in the more generalized areas, not so much in the technical side. So, if anybody's watching this and listening, our economic development folks and so forth, and I've had a few conversations around this, but in my view, if we really want to, put Arizona, bring the technical side of Arizona up to par with the visionary policy and legislation that our policymakers have put forth, it would be valuable, I think, to have a conference here in Arizona that attracts some of this technical talent. Because, and I actually put together a proposal along those lines and submitted it to some folks that are involved with DWeb Camp. But, and I think we have a really rich opportunity to attract, the type of people that are really building what's next for Web 3.0, because, we've got things that they like to do in a variety of ways, outdoors and so forth. So I've got some ideas along those lines. I'll just kind of throw it out there that I would love to explore that with some folks. And I would also like to say that it is really, really, really difficult to attract the communities that I just showed you for the Stanford or the Science and Blockchain Conference and the DWeb Camp. It is an art in itself to get their attention, period. To get them to return an email, or, you really have to have something that's compelling. But if you have the subject matter and the other, you can attract a few folks that they're interested in collaborating with, it can happen. And a lot of those folks, and I didn't show you the DWeb summit that happened at the Internet Archive in 2016, but if you look at that, and also the 2018 event that happened in the old San Francisco Mint and the Internet Archive, but a lot of these people never have to work again. Some of them are billionaires, and a lot of the people that are sitting around that campfire at DWeb Camp are worth more than we can almost ever imagine. So, and I'm going to be speaking, I'll put a little, because I did add at the end of this slide deck a notice on this, but on February the 3rd, I'll be at ASU doing a Innovation in Arizona panel at the law school. It's from noon to 1. I think it might be available on Zoom. In fact, I know it is. But I'll be doing a short presentation on why, in my view, focusing on what I call the real innovators, or an overused term is the rock stars, is more important than ever. So, that's my view on, another dimension of these events that are attended and are worth the time of these people that are incredibly taxed on their time and their attention for not only their technical side, but also the projects that they're dealing with have huge market caps in the billions. And, so to get their attention is a real gift. And for Arizona, I think it is possible. So anyway, any other thoughts, comments, questions, so forth? Okay, got a question here in the live stream. I think it's coming from another cool event that maybe we'll talk about at some point. Question about DAOs, and I would say that's in the Gets realm. At least one of the key folks at the College of Law is into decentralized autonomous organizations and so forth. And that's, in my view, it's not so much a technical issue, it's more a policy. How do you wind these things, these organizations up that don't really have a leader, don't have the traditional, structure, and then let them go in the wild and see what happens? I mean, one of the first ones was a disaster because the code was flawed. But yeah, DAOs are definitely a part of it. And thank you, Tavia, for bringing that up. And we'll put that in the stack and try to pry ourselves away from the attention of non-fungible tokens and talk about DAOs, and maybe there's synergy in the two. So anyway, I will let class out early this evening, and unless there's any other questions or whatever. Yep, the presentation will be open to everybody tomorrow after about 8 o'clock or so Arizona time. There are links in the notes for this live stream. Also, I'll just mention it as a matter of convenience and courtesy, but it takes a while for these videos to render because I record for about an hour and a half on the live stream, and I won't go into the reasons why, but I edit that down after a day or so. So if you hop on this recording, you'll have to skip ahead a ways to get to this point. I do appreciate the folks that are on here. You are Desert Blockchain citizens. We're completely community funded, and your contribution per month is really, really appreciated. We occasionally take sponsors, but we try to stay as Swiss neutral as possible, and make this a completely community funded endeavor. So what I did mention at the beginning, I'll reiterate it. On February the 23rd, we're going to have a Jason Horton of Nori.com, who has been cited in the IEEE recently as one of the top 12 innovations for 2022 to keep an eye on. And that wasn't a top 12 innovations in blockchain or cryptocurrency or anything else. It involved like particle accelerators, just crazy stuff. And they picked Jason's innovation on carbon sequestration using NFTs. So he's going to be talking about that. And then just yesterday, Julian Lennon, John Lennon's son, is using an NFT to basically have an auction or a market for some of the Beatles memorabilia, and they have included a Nori NFT within their NFTs in order to do a carbon offset, so that the NFT that's used for the auction is carbon neutral or carbon negative. And I'm sure Jason will be talking about that, but Jason's kind of becoming a rock star for sure in the decentralized NFT realm and so forth. I think he's incredibly talented. So that'll be February 23rd. And then I'm just announcing this for the first time, but we also are planning an invitation only Saturday session for, I would call it, advanced developers using NFTs, and Jason's going to be part of that as well. And that'll be our normal hours, but it will be invitation only, and it will basically require some pretty advanced coding and technical skills to get into that. But anyway, that's about it. I'm cutting into your free time. So thank you very much, and look forward. I did put on Meetup the Jason Horton session earlier today, so you can sign up for that. And as always, feel free to contact me, Jay Carpenter, and at desertblockchain.com. My contact information is on the end of the presentation. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time and attention. Let me know if you have any questions. And Daria, thank you for the suggestion on the DAOs. It's definitely a great topic. All right.